Paul Ricca was born November 14, 1897, in Naples, Italy. He was considered the brains in the Chicago outfit, along with Tony Accardo. Ricca grew up in Naples and was convicted of murder there in 1917. He served 2 years in prison and ended up committing another murder. Before he fled to the United States in 1919, after making his way to Chicago, he became a waiter in a restaurant owned by Diamond Joe. That's how Ricca got his nickname. He then became a bodyguard for Al Capone, becoming good friends with Capone and eventually moving up the ranks. Becoming Capone's right-hand man, he was Capone's best man at his 1927 wedding. Capone was convicted and sent to prison. Paul Ricca was promoted to underboss of the outfit. When Prohibition ended in 1933, the outfit moved west to Hollywood, California. The outfit saw the film industry as a huge money maker. Ricca sent Johnny Rosselli out to take over labor unions involved with the film industry. Once they got control of those unions, they used another mobster named Willie Bioff to extort money from the Hollywood moguls of the time. Willie infiltrated the International Alliance of Theatrical Stage Employees and began to extort millions of dollars from major motion picture studios. Willie started living lavish, buying mansions, expensive suits, gold jewelry, and expensive cars. Robert Montgomery, president of the Screen Actors Guild, tipped off the IRS, and in 1943 Willie was indicted for tax evasion as well as extortion and racketeering. Willie couldn't handle the thought of doing prison time, so he testified against Paul Ricca, Philip D'Andrea, Charlie Geo, Johnny Rosselli, Lou Kaufman, and Frank Nitti. They were convicted and sentenced to 10 years, each plus $10,000 in fines. In 1944, the Atlanta penitentiary where Ricca and Phil D'Andrea were incarcerated was run by Warden Joseph Sanford. When Phil D'Andrea decided he didn't like the prison diet, he complained to a guard that he was sick and needed his food brought to him. An orderly conducted a urine test, but Phil threatened his life unless the results came out all right. The orderly reported the threat to the warden, who marched down to Phil D'Andrea's cell and beat him senseless. Ricca continued to exert influence in prison, but after D'Andrea's beating, he realized he could expect no assistance in Atlanta. Ricca decided that he wanted to be transferred to Leavenworth Prison, since it was closer to Chicago. So Ricca filed for a request to transfer. The warden denied the request because it would be easier for Ricca to control the outfit from Leavenworth. Ricca wasn't used to being told no, so he went directly to the Bureau of Prison Affairs in Washington, but they denied the transfer as well. Ricca was put in touch with a Missouri legislator, Edward Brady, who in turn contacted lawyer Paul Dillon, who wielded political clout. In 1934, at the personal request of political boss Thomas Pendergast, Dillon agreed to serve as Harry Truman's campaign manager in his race for Senate. After Truman entered the White House, Dillon became fast friends with Weber Wilson, the chairman of the parole board. While Dillon was doing his part, another lawyer named Maury Hughes traveled to Washington, D.C., meet with Attorney General Ramsey Clark. Shortly after the meeting, the Attorney General requested the gangsters be transferred to Leavenworth. In May 1945, Campagna, D'Andrea, Charles Geo, and Ricca formally requested that they be transferred to Leavenworth Prison. Because their families were cash-strapped and the trip to Atlanta was too expensive for them, the heads of both prisons protested the move. But Ricca was granted his wish. In July of 1945, they were transferred to Leavenworth. Comfortably situated inside his Leavenworth cell, Ricca was back in business, directing Chicago operations from inside the prison. Tony Accardo, who was running things on the outside, visited Ricca in prison. Accompanying Accardo on these visits was Eugene Burstein, who was a tax expert who had been with the IRS for 10 years. Burstein brought Ricca good news after talking with his former employer about a possible tax settlement. He said that the IRS wasn't opposed to an out-of-court settlement with Ricca. The government later settled for $126,000 plus interest. The third stroke of good fortune came from Truman himself. President Truman was elected in large part to the political pull of the powerful Kelly Nash RV Democratic machine in Chicago. As a result of the pressures brought to bear on the White House through the Kelly Nash organization, a functionary in the Truman administration saw to it that Ricca and the other mobsters walked free from their prison sentences. On August 13, 1947, they were released. Their release caused a national scandal, with 2 Chicago newspapers launching their own investigation into the case. This was followed by a full congressional investigation launched in September of 1947. Neither the newspapers nor the House committee were able to find incendiary evidence of corruption. However, the Department of Justice, with the eyes of the world on them, denied that parole had been granted, but said that the men were only given passes. The public wasn't buying it, and the wheels of justice in Washington were forced to turn. Ricca was arrested by marshals and sent back to Atlanta to serve the rest of his sentence. Ricca served less than 3 years in prison. He ran the outfit from 1941 until 1957, when immigration problems forced him to turn over day-to-day control of the outfit over to Sam Giancana. Avoiding deportation, Ricca took back control of the outfit in 1965 with Tony Accardo and continued to run its affairs as a kind of elder statesman until he died of natural causes in 1972.